The in-class assignment we have just conducted in the classroom illustrates some important pitfalls that can occur during the initiation phase of a project. We usually, or we have seen that there are certain ways, certain patterns the people who are involved in the project are taking decision. Now, I would like to review with you the most important pitfalls or the most important problems that occur in startup, in particular in relation to how decision making is done. The first problem that maybe you have witnessed already during the exercise, that there was too much focus on finding a good technical solution. Project members and project managers usually, and because of what we refer to the focusing effect, the focusing effect is a bias that occurs when decision makers place too much importance on one aspect and forget other aspects of the project. Here, there was too much focus on delivering on time, just making a good design, and ignoring other important factors, other important considerations. The drawback of this kind of approach or this kind of problem is that it makes the team or the project focuses on short-term results, just to produce something, just to bring out something. We call it focus on the output. But if you recall my definition of project, we said that projects are means of creating change, making an outcome, creating values. And this is actually should be the focus of the project group. How do we create these values rather than just focusing on the output? But this is a typical problem in projects, actually, in startup phase. This focusing effect, the bias to just look at one side of the problem. The second drawback behind this pitfall is the wrong prioritization of resources. Rather than focusing our resources, focusing our effort on understanding all the constraints, all the requirements of the project, we just pick one of them and go accordingly. And it might not be the right one, might be the wrong one, and then we invest our resources in the wrong way. The third problem that might occur because of this bias is actually it could contribute to social complexity in the project groups because of conflicts and disagreement. Imagine you have one group in the project that is focusing on one particular aspect, and there is another group focusing on another aspect, and these two groups actually sitting all the time and competing between each other to convince the other side that their thinking, their aspect is the right one. And this problem is a real problem, in particular in projects with high technological content. So here we have to remember one thing, that in projects it is actually not the results that are important, not only the results, not only the output, not only solving a technical problem that is the most important thing in project, but actually is the outcome of this particular project. How to create that change, how to achieve that change, how to ensure that this change or this value creation will take place. And this is one important condition to call any project a successful project. In this course, you will learn that success and success criteria, success factors, that is creating short and long time values for the project or from the project is fundamental concept, and project management is there actually to realize this concept. The second problem that you might have noticed during this exercise is what we refer to assumptions. You might have noticed that a great deal of the decision making that took place during the assignment was based on unconfirmed or non-controlled assumptions, personal assumptions, individual assumptions, or group assumptions about the product, its use, the estimation method, about the surroundings, about the real need, about the actors, about the stakeholders, about the technology, about the structure, everything. There is a tendency, this is another problem actually in projects. Because of uncertainty and because of ambiguity, rather than asking questions, rather than trying to figure out what is the problem and or what are the requirements and what are the unknowns, people take shortcuts. And these shortcuts force them to make assumptions to fill in the gaps. And these assumptions, if they are remained unverified, they will lead to wrong assessment of project scope, wrong assessment of needs, and wrong assessment of what is required in order to achieve the goal of the project. Another problem that might occur because of these assumptions is that the level of complexity, level of project complexity will not be understood. And this will contribute to misunderstanding about project scope, product structure, and other important traits. And they will contribute for sure to producing uncertain or unverified plans. So a very important thing in project management is to address these assumptions in a proper way. And we have a process called project risk management, and we apply this process of risk management exactly to address or to verify or to look at these assumptions. Assumptions actually occur because of, again, the biases that I spoke about in the previous slide, that you assume something or you have built in, or it's actually a cognitive shortcut in our brain. We, for instance, we have something called the anchoring bias. The anchoring bias is that you take the first piece of information and you build your understanding you build your perception just on the first piece of information, and you don't even try to look for more information. There is another bias called the selective perception, and it says what I see is what I want to see. We only see what we want to see. So these biases brings in this problem with assumption. A direct consequence, as you can see from this slide, that a direct consequence of assumptions is that project work is understood differently by many different people. As I told you, the project is a group effort, is conducted and is performed and developed by several people. So for instance, the client will describe it in some way, it will be understood by the project manager in another way, it will be designed by the engineer a third different way, and it will be presented by a salesperson by totally different way, and will be produced differently, and the real need is something totally else. And during the project phase, there is no single document, there is no documentation of how the information was verified. So this is actually a direct consequences of failing to address assumptions and biases at startup in a proper way. The third problem we have, or we know that we have in regarding decision making at startup is the human factors. Again, projects are not performed or developed by robots. They are developed by humans. They have different culture. They belong to different organizations. They different person. We are individual with different personalities, with different expectations, and this itself is another factor that always brings. For instance, we have this conformity. Some people in a group, they just follow the group, either because they are convinced that what the group is saying is right, or just because they don't want to be the one who makes waves inside the group. We call this normative conformity. So we sometimes conform to something we don't really agree. And sometimes we agree because we have we are reserved because of dividends. We don't want to be insulted by any other person. We are scared, so we keep things for ourselves. Sometimes we do things because of loyalty to our boss, to our friend, to our leader, and this loyalty is a part of our culture, our organizational culture that we have all the time to adhere to. And sometimes in a group there are some people with strong opinions that they try to force their opinions on the rest of the group, and this kind of mentality complicates the decision making. So in addition to biases, in addition to assumptions, in addition to focusing on just one single aspect in a project, we have also the problem of the organizational structure and how culture, individual culture, national culture influence the way projects are done. As you can see, there are many issues we need to address. There are many things we need to look for and to establish. We need to have good processes. We need to have different methods and tools and techniques in order to control all these pitfalls that occur not only in the initiation phase but also in the development and control phase and termination phase of a project. So the previous example or the previous exercise shows us that the project exhibits several features that require a structured management approach so that we can deliver project objectives to satisfy stakeholders' needs and expectations. So our definition of project management is as follows. It is the application of knowledge, skills, and techniques to execute project effectively and efficiently. And notice here the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness, it has to do with the effectiveness of the outcome. Did the project really created value? Created that change that we were seeking upfront? And efficiently means when we use our resources, did we use them the right way? Did we deliver on time? Did we deliver within budget? Did we deliver the specifications, the statements of work? So good project management end up in attaining both the output and the outcome. This is very important principle. This is very important thing to remember when you think about project management. It's not about delivering the product and that's it. It's also making sure that the product will bring the values, the changes that we were up to. Now, the very first step in applying this structure approach in managing project is to split, is to try to understand projects and their components. So one first method or the first step is to try to split the project development into stages or phases. And the end of each phase usually is marked by a decision gate. A decision gate is a point of time where the project manager, the steering committee, important stakeholders might sit together and say, and look back at the project and say, aha, did we do the right thing? Shall we go further with this project, or shall we cancel it? Shall we increase the budget or cancel the project? Do we need to enlarge the duration? Do we need to reduce the scope? So these decision gates actually are very, very important points of time to take very important decisions about projects. Pinto, for instance, he described or he classified the project life cycle into 4 stages. Most of books on project management have similar classification. Sometimes we have 4, sometimes we have 5, but actually all of them, they talk about first phase is the conceptualization or the initiation phase. In this course, I will swap between conceptualization, initiation. They are the same. This is the very initial phase of the project, the first phase, the first stage. It is very important because there, in this phase or at this stage, we develop the initial goal and specification. We tell why we have this project. Why are we going to invest in this project? So this stage, the conceptualization and the initiation phase, is very important to create alignment in the project. Now try to remember this word, alignment. That is to bring all the stakeholders on stage, to bring all them together, to agree, to commit themselves to the project. The second phase is the planning phase or the planning stage. Here we start making detailed specifications, schedules. We describe risks. We start making drawings. We begin the design. And all technical specifications and other important things are produced during this phase. Here, a key word when we are doing this project plan is to define responsibility and accountability during this stage, because we will give these tasks to people, and these people will have to complete the work according to the plan. The third stage is what we call it the execution and control. Now, some authors or some references distinguish between execution and control. They split them into 2 different phases. But Pinto here use the same, and actually execution and control must be done together. Execution means that you start producing the output, you start producing results, your deliverable, you bring them out. And control means that you look for needs for any corrective actions. You measure the progress, you compare this progress with the plan, and you see the deviation. If there is any negative deviation, then you have to make actions. Maybe change the plan, change the scope, add more time, add more resources, whatever is needed should be done. Here, progress reporting and maintaining alignment during this stage is key factor. And the last phase is the termination phase or the close out phase, when you transfer your product to the customer or to your client and resources reassigned, and we call it close out. Now, a very important thing that must be done here is what we call lessons learned should be identified and documented. Indeed, lessons learned should be done during all phases of the project, after each stage, after each important step. But here we document the entire project, what we have learned. Documenting lessons learned is very, very important step if we want to make sure that we are going to succeed in every project we take in the organization. Again, PMI, Project Management Institute, put these activities or these processes together. They say that we have at the beginning, we have an owner, and the first process is the initiation phase or the conceptualization phase, and then we start planning, and then after planning, we do execution, and then we have this control function. Control is making sure that we are doing the right thing. And as you can see here, control actually is done on all levels. When you do initiation, you have to control that initiation phase is done right. When you do planning, you also have to do it in the right way. So control function is, can you say, a global process that applies to each individual process. And at the end, you have the termination phase, and the output is the deliverables and the documents that you produce, the learning, which is important for experience transfer, and the deliverables will go to end user and your client. Now, in the next part, we will start explaining the tasks that should be done in the initiation phase so that we can address both this, we call it the ambiguity, we can address the uncertainty so that we create proper alignment.